What's up, everybody? This is Joe Fazio, and welcome to the GolfJitsu podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, John Del Bruges, and my buddy, Gonzalez, who was my part-time Muay Thai coach, like whenever I showed up on weekends. How are you, Will?
Doing good, sir. Thanks for having me on. You and John, I appreciate you guys.
Oh, pleasure's
Nice to
all
meet
ours.
you,
Thanks for
Will.
coming on.
Thanks for
Thanks
having me.
for coming on. We appreciate you, man. So Will is what I would call like a martial arts psychopath. I guess you'd be like you're like on the level of a psychopath like I am with golf. Like you go to seminars and like weekend seminars and things like that, and you're constantly working on your stuff. But like, what first got you into the martial arts,
Yeah,
and how? Go ahead.
sorry, I was 7 years old, and my dad came home with McDonald's Happy Meal and two movies, The Running Man and Bloodsport. And when I saw Van Damme kick, I said, I want to do that.
Yes.
And that's what started. So originally there was a guy. I grew up in Trenton. So there was a guy who used to teach at the Boys and Girls Club karate. And if you remember, it was like free lessons. And then I wanted to get better. And then my parents found this school in Hamilton, a Taekwondo school. If you can learn how to kick that way, right? So I was there for quite a while. And then it just progressed. I wanted to learn more. I'm going to go back and forth for a second. I went there to visit him, and he still has a sign that says, if you train at the dojang, you only can train at this dojang, because he's so old school from Korea.
Yeah.
So you would get like, you know what I mean? Like he's still that old school mentality. Like, all right, whatever. Then I started doing a little bit of boxing, because obviously there's no hands in Taekwondo. And then when I was around 21, I'm going to date ourselves. We're all old guys here. I was in the Yellow Pages, and I saw this 2-page spread, and it was Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, Mafalindo Silat, and Filipino martial arts, and it was Savate, which is French kickboxing, and Jiu-Jitsu and catch wrestling. I was like, oh my God, I got to go here. And that was it. I just kept going and going and going, and been training still. Like, I love it. It's a part of my life. I need it.
Oh, dude.
Will, let me ask you really fast. So you were saying you were kind of dating yourself there by looking through the Yellow Pages, but like, so when you were 7, and were you? I'm assuming you were 7 around when like the first Bloodsport came out.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so MMA at this point is completely non-existent, right?
Completely.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's not even a white belt in any part in any state in the U.S., let alone any blue belts. I mean, that's what, late 80s.
And that was
Blood sport.
1989. 1989.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get like any type of jiu-jitsu in the States until after UFC 1, in the early 90s. So you got to kind of see. You're like a true early pioneer that like got through all the bullshit, because those are great martial arts. But my entire upbringing has been like street fighting, high school wrestling, and then like high level Brazilian jiu-jitsu and MMA. So like and I was born in 85, so I did get to experience a lot of the mystique of martial arts before the UFC came in and completely rained on everybody's parade and just dismantled all of our paradigms of martial arts and what was real, because there was so much like mystique to it. Like, this guy's got a black belt, you don't want to mess with him, man. He's got these kicks, and if he touches you in one spot, you're done. He can't do it because his hands are registered as lethal weapons, so he can't show
Yeah,
you.
I remember those days.
So guys would say that all the time, and then fast forward, UFC comes around, and then Hoist Gracie, this 6 foot tall, 160-pound guy, is just strangling all walks of life, and it was complete craziness back then. It was just like, like sumo wrestlers.
Right. I remember I was in Puerto
Zero
Rico.
weight class.
I was in Puerto
It was in Puerto Rico.
I was there.
Were you there for it?
Oh, I was sorry, my dog, my canine. So
It sounds like a big old dog.
yeah,
right
he's
there.
tired. But no, I was in Puerto Rico for the summer, and with my uncle. My parents were like, "Hey, just go to Puerto Rico, no problem." And I'm in my uncle's house, and he just turns on TV and he says, "Hey, you want to watch this?" I was like, "Yeah, this looks cool." And it was like it was back in '94. Don't remember which UFC it was.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, it was cool. It was like the karate versus the wrestler, and the ninjutsu guy versus this guy, whose art was better. So I was like, wow, this is real blood sport, And I really
just wanted to like kind of point that out to the audience, like who's listening. We have golf and martial arts podcast. We're like on in our martial arts grind right now. So just like I just want people that are listening to know that like the martial arts landscape has not always been like this, you know, and folks like yourself who have like literally grown up and see all these transformations. I mean, you really spent
It's
your whole
remarkable. Yeah.
lifetime in it, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah, it really is remarkable to see the evolution of it. If that's the nice choice word to say. Um, so yeah, like starting from the beginning and showing how it's progressed. Like, you know, I was talking to a buddy of mine. Like, you know, imagine a fighter now fighting someone 20, 30 years ago. They would demolish that guy, even though they are high level at that time.
Mhm.
You know, they were, you know, there's just so limited into that skill set. That makes sense. Like you would
for
just
sure.
whether it was jujitsu or karate or whatever it is. Now you have a guy who could transition from a high go high with a strike to the 1-2 and then level change and fake the level change and then go back to a high kick. And it's like they weren't doing that back 30, 40 years ago.
I mean,
know,
they weren't doing what they're doing in today in the UFC, like in MMA in general. They're not doing what they were doing in 2010. It's an
right.
entirely different game. The
It's like
speed,
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and it's like the specialization that everybody had in 2010 that set them apart. It made everybody catch up, and then the more everybody knew, the less everybody does now, and it turns into a very tightly, closely contested kind of wrestling and boxing match at the higher levels of the UFC when you get into the main cards, because there's more. These guys got more film on each other. They've watched each other. There's more respect. So there's the feeling out process is longer, and it's really, really head on. And there's not a whole lot of openings that you see there. And then like on the prelims where guys are trying to make a name for themselves, they're literally shot out of a cannon at each other 100 miles an hour. That speed that they're moving at now and the defensiveness that they have, their frames, whether it's on their stand up or on their ground or their stand up wrestling and grappling, everything, they're just solid. Everybody's got like solid fundamental basics, and then everybody's like a little bit crazy and everybody's in great shape.
Yeah.
And then so it's like like what it comes down to when everything is matched up like that is literally like a battle of wills. You know, if like both guys are kind of like technically even, both guys are like in the same amount of shape, you know, both guys are like the same size and strength, then it's going to come down to like literally who wants it more and stuff like
Right.
that.
It's the
So that's,
skill
you're
and the
actually seeing
conditioning.
those fights now, you know.
Right.
And
Who wants it
kind of
more?
cool.
It's like we both
Yeah.
have the same skill level. Like who has the better conditioning or who has the will? Who wants to take it to the next level? And you know,
Absolutely.
like
You know, and I
I
always tell,
say,
yeah,
he said, I'm ready to die. Right. So to have
Mhm.
that crazy mindset, like, all right, let's go take care of business. You know.
I
Well,
always tell my guys, you know, like that like are maybe are not so sure of themselves, like, hey, you know, just so you know, like if the more you're not sure of yourself you are, the more like self-confidence that you lack, you can make up for that by getting just trying to be as technically proficient as possible, trying to be in the best shape as possible. I would use that as my motivation. Like I need to get in the best shape as fucking possible, because otherwise like it just like you don't ever want to get tired in a fight. It's like the worst feeling in the entire world. You like the bad dreams where you're trying to like defend yourself and throw a punch and you can't. You're like, oh my god, I can't throw a punch. You know, so like and conversely, I tell my crazy guys, I'm like, hey, your craziness not gonna fucking matter if you're not in shape or you're not good at fighting, you know. So it's just like it all has to balance out.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you're gonna need you want as much as those three facets as possible in your tool.
yeah.
Would you agree?
Well, Will, I have a question for you. What you know, you discuss karate, you discuss boxing, but what are the specific disciplines that or techniques that you focus on the most today?
Today, everything. And I know it sounds like BS. Like I'll pick a day, I'll go to the gym and I'll do focus on boxing, or I'll do Thai, or I'll do tradition. I'll combine like Taekwondo and Savate, you know, because I don't like to limit my style or my system. I like to merge everything, the reality of MMA, right? So it's like when I was coaching last week, I said, listen, you could Thai kick all you want. That's great. But what happens when you see a Thai fight? Everyone's doing this, right? So when you're able to utilize multiple systems and converge it into one, a snap kick, a tie kick, right? And just learning how to flow those systems together, so which I still try to do. Like, so again, I'll do boxing one day, I'll do tie on a heavy bag. I'll work on some double stick drills for Sinawali, which is Kali Filipino martial arts. I was in Philly last night with one of my best friends, helping him with his fighters. I was sparring those guys, you know. So I still do everything. I know it's kind of like a tough statement, but I really do still focus on everything. Like my Sabat here last weekend, I was doing French kickboxing for 2 days with him. Like, you know, so I still do
Well, I remember one of the first times I met you. All right, it was a Saturday morning. I show up for open mat, and I was a little bit early, and they're training their the kickboxing, and Will stuck around, which was like a rare occasion. He actually stuck around for rolling. Right, you did a little bit of rolls, and I get Will in guard. And he just takes his hand and he's like, stab, 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 stab. And he's like, you're dead. You're dead. So you just pulled me into guard and you got into a bad place. And then I remember that one time where I was like sitting on the wall because I was out of breath and you just jumped on me and like, bro, you got to learn how to make distance and get yourself out of there. That really opened my eyes to yeah, jiu-jitsu is great. And I think 97% of the population 97% of the population, you're going to be able to dismember them, right? And just take them out and take care of yourself. But what do you do when you're faced in front of a weapon? What do you do if you're faced with somebody who can throw a punch or a kick or train in anything?
Right. And that's what we always talked about over the time we've trained together. It's the what I always say it's the Bruce Lee mentality, right? He was what does White always say? He was the godfather of MMA, right? So if you look at it, I know it was only film, but look at his films. When did you ever see a guy do a double leg?
Opinions on this, but go on.
When did you see a guy do a double leg on film, right? So he said, you got to learn how to punch. You have to learn how to kick. You have to learn how to grapple. You got to learn how to use weapons. You have to learn how to trap hands, right? And then make it your own. So that's the mindset. So it's just obviously it's a combination of loving the martial arts and just practicing whatever is available, what's in my reach. And on top of that, I'm in law enforcement, right? So it's what do I deal with in the prison? I got to deal with weapons, right? I got to deal with what do we find what's the high probability of us finding a shank or a shib or edge weapon, right? It's pretty high. So you have to learn how to deal with it and learning how to combine that with grappling or weapons retention or whatever you want to call it these days. It's self-defense or, street tactics, whatever. It's very important. I really feel it's imperative, so it happens all the time. Not going to say the name and I won't say the company. So I went to like a 2-week course and this is like day 9 of the course, certification course. And the coach says, all right, I'm in side control and I'm stabbing you. What do you do? And I said, well, you're already dead. Like I get it. And like got to stay in the fight. But, if anyone who's in law enforcement, like the weakest part of the vest, the tack vest or any vest you wear is on the side. So if the bad guy has you in side control and he's stabbing you, like, well, you're already dead, bro. Like, if you can't pull the guy in Kimura, you're gonna be leaking, So I get it, you got to do something, but you're limited by your training if you're gonna say that, right? That means you only know that one art, and I don't know everything, but I tried my best to learn as much as I can, so I could try my best to be well-rounded, if that makes sense. Not just for the sport, but for the for self-defense purposes, or whatever the case may be these days,
Right. Well, if you look at like MMA fighters like the UFC, they have a handful of Brazilian jiu-jitsu moves that they're going to go to. So they go to a rear naked choke, they go to an arm bar. They have this bag of like 5 tricks that they're going to go to. Other than that, when it comes down to, they have a strong wrestling base, strong stand-up base, strong, Muay Thai or kicking base. Like, John, correct me if I'm wrong. I've never gotten into a ring, nor will I ever. But it's like they, a fighter or like those gladiators like yourself, like they're only taking the best of the best moves. Like they're not going to go attack legs unless they're, a magician and they can get heel hooks all day long.
If you don't have, and this is what I tell fighters all the time that are coming up, like if you don't have like a borderline household name if you're talking about like leg locking people or arm bars even, okay?
Right.
I'm like, if you don't even have a borderline household name from competing in jiu-jitsu and leg locking and arm barring people, you're not going to go and do it in MMA. Like guard doesn't get played in MMA. Like you have to force a guy to concede the guard position. Right. You take a guy down in MMA, his thought isn't going to be, let me wrap this guy up in my guard and let me try to catch him in something. The second you're taking a guy down in MMA, he's automatically turning to expose his back. He wants you to now jump on his back because he understands that that's going to be a scramble. Okay. If you concede the guard position, top guy is gonna completely clamp down and dominate that top position. You're gonna be trying to get angles on a guy who's literally been trained. He's gonna be holding you down, elbowing you, not giving up space, and like learning top position, learning defense from all these arm bars and foot locks. Honestly, like if you don't have to counter back with those attacks, it's just not going to work. Like so some of the leg locks and stuff, a lot of these things they work because the other guys in jiu-jitsu, they're choosing to like counter them with other attacks that are similar, like 50-50. It's called 50-50 because you guys are both are 50-50 shot.
Yeah, it equals
It's an
playing
offensive shootout. Yeah,
I
it's an
don't think it
offensive
equals.
shootout. But here's the thing with that. It's like, hey, that's cool though, but because that's sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they can do that, and they're competing in that in a
Right.
high sport. So it's like, hey, if you're gonna do that, and then don't go in there and be coping about shit when you're getting your foot locked and be like, well, hey, in MMA this wouldn't work. No, I mean you're doing this, learn it, get used to it, get desensitized to it, feel what it's like, and then move on. And if you're an MMA guy doing jiu-jitsu classes, you want to expose yourself to these things. But like Joe was saying, you're not going to bring all this shit with you in there. You just got to feel what it's and be like, okay, cool. Like I can go with the jiu-jitsu guys. I can strike with the striker guys. I can get that rub from these guys, and I can bring that in to the MMA fight with me. And like you said, Joe, you're only going to be doing the stuff that works. This is why hard sparring for MMA is very important, especially in the beginning. And you got to really control it. So like you got to have like hard sparring, 16-ounce gloves on. Headgear is kind of optional because you are a bigger target to hit, but it will cut down on cuts. Absolutely no elbows or knees, but full out ground and pound, full out punching and kicking. So guys do get knocked out. Guys are getting subbed on the ground, full ground and pound. This is where you're going to develop your style and what will work in the actual competition,
Right.
And again, this is for people that want to be fighters and want to be maybe pay some bills fighting. This is what they're going to have to get good at. And they're going to have to ditch everything else if they want to do that. If you're a person who wants to be a well-rounded martial artist for like confidence and peace of mind and just be a well-rounded person in general, like a Renaissance person, yeah, you're going to want to expose yourself to all the cool stuff. And Will, like your martial arts thing, like really is like a I lost power for a second. It's like a synergistic effect in that like you am I still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're here.
Sorry, my power's my screen's cutting off. It's got like a trifecta where you're training in all these different kind of exotic martial arts, I'd say, and like it helps you in you said you work in law enforcement, so it helps you in that, and then helps you like choreographing and things like that as well.
Mhm.
So like MMA doesn't translate good to the screen. I mean, it just doesn't. The double leg takedown, it's not going to look good.
Right. I mean, there's ways to
You're
go
going to
around
really
it.
have to flare it up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
That's the whole thing of like, that type of a different separate in regards to like what you can use for that versus like the reality, right? It's like, for example, like if I'm doing, I was talking to Joe, like if we're doing jujitsu, I would tell him honestly, I wouldn't do that in the jail. Well, why not? Well, here's the reason why.
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I would do that. Like, so there's the martial sport, there's the science, and there's the martial artist, right? So there's all these other different martial ways or things people look at it. But I think it's safe to say we're all realists, and we can honestly say without offending anyone, I said, listen, I'll do it. You're my coach, whatever you want me to do. But then from a reality standpoint, I wouldn't do that because I'm surrounded by like 70 guys. I would do this and then run, or create space. That is my distance.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, and that's the way I look at things. And I mean it in the most respectful way. And Joe knows that too. It's, I'll do the move, I'll do the technique, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll keep it for when I roll with Joe. I'll keep it for, the defensive portion of, what we do on the street type of thing.
Well, Will, I have a really great question that kind of ties in with what you were saying. Like, what do you love most about like the training and competing in, we'll just say in martial arts?
The camaraderie, it really is a place where I don't care who you are, color, creed, religion, doesn't matter. You're in a room full of killers who got love and respect for the game. So we talked before, when I first started training in my old gym in Princeton, you had NASA scientists, neurosurgeons, dentists, very few law enforcement, maybe 2 or 3 guys. These guys were like high-level businessmen at their field and high-level martial artists. You would walk a guy down, look at the guy down the street, you wouldn't even think this guy trains. And this is how I just feel so. That's the best thing about it for me. Like the friendships I made in the past 15, 20, 30 years. I've been training all these different gyms. I've made friends all over, and you've met some of them before, right? Friends in Philly, friends all up and down the East Coast, on the West Coast, out of the country. All these phenomenal coaches I've had the pleasure of training with and being certified under, that I look up to, still do, and like you said, like I still go to seminars, right? Because I don't know everything. I'm still learning. Listen, I'm 42 years old and I still train. I'm going to a seminar next month, right? 2-day seminar. Okay. I know what they're going to show, but it's the technique or it's the level of detail, right? So when I go to a seminar, it's not like maybe I might know it, but I might look at it from this perspective. Maybe he's teaching it in a way where I never thought about thinking it that way. Like, oh shit, that makes sense. I never thought about teaching it that way. Or maybe he or she applies it differently in regards to the mechanics. And this is the way I do it. And here's the reason why I do it this way. Oh, let me write that down. That's actually, I like that. That makes sense. And I'm still, I'm still training, it's just, but that's the number one thing is the camaraderie. I love that environment, I do.
Well, it's like you find your tribe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My tribe. And there was and that's the great thing about the training we were doing. Bro, I can't make this up, man. It was 3 of my best buddies, it kind of sucks. Like when you get a core group of people that you train with and everyone just goes their own way after a while. Like my one buddy doing this great thing in Philly, my other close friend, he's up in North Jersey. My other friend moved to Texas, but it was a core 4 of us. We trained, dude, every day, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a night, not including strength and conditioning and road work. We just trained all the time. And then Thursday nights were the longest nights. It was Muay Thai for an hour. Then it was Jeet Kune Do. Then it was grappling. And then it was Kali. That's 4 hours. And then we'd stay either another 20 minutes to stretch or half hour, or we'd say, hey, guys, what do you want to work on today? We got 20 minutes. Let's just rep something out real quick so we could memorize it, And I miss it every day, dude, So
well, you had your foursome. We pulled it back to golf. You had your foursome.
Yeah, there it is. But it's just and having the opportunity to train with all these phenomenal instructors who I look up to this day, Guru Danny DeSanto, Coach Eric Paulson, and Greg Nelson, and my coach Rick Tucci, who's semi-retired, and Nicholas Sonyak, who's the leading authority in Savat in the States. I mean, just to train with all these people, it's one, I'm a fan. 2, I want you to teach me. You've been training 40, 50 years. Give it to me. I want to learn, tell me what to do. I'll do it,
Yeah. And then also, and then also you've got
Nelson, by the way, sorry. Just didn't mean to interject.
No worries.
That's cool. That I mean, Greg Nelson, Eric Paulson are some big
time names. That's why I love
the jiu-jitsu world, pal. All right,
yeah,
so
absolutely
got to pay our homage when he's going to name drop like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and that's another thing too.
Cool
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know why. And again, I'm not naming anyone. It's just I have no problem paying homage or showing my lineage to the people who paved the way for us.
For sure, absolutely. Especially a guy like Greg Nelson, cancer survivor, absolute beast. Black belt. Just total stud.
Right. These guys have been doing all these arts. They were doing Savat back then and
Minnesota martial art, mixed martial
arts.
Right.
Yeah. Right. They were doing Kali back then. So, and my coach, who was under
he's old school, everything. He did everything.
Yeah. So that's what it was.
Chuck Norris type of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So my coach said, hey, listen, if my coach said to do it, I would do it. Okay. Well, my coach told me to do it. I'm going to do it. Right. So my coach was under the Inosanto family. Bruce Lee's best friend is still alive. He lives in the West Coast. He still has the Inosanto Academy, and Eric Paulson and Greg Nelson and Burton Richardson. All these guys like Chaz Stahelski, the director John Wick. All these guys were under Inosanto, right? So whatever my coach said, when Inosanto told my coach to do something, he would do it. And then when he told me to do it, I would do it too. Why not? If your coach, told you to do it, then I'm gonna do it too. Whatever you need me to do to help me understand the technique, the mechanics, and whether it's the philosophical way or the science or the art behind it, let's do it, man.
My coach was also my boss for a very long time. So
my coach is semi-retired. We still keep it. I still visit him, and we still I mean, he was a phenomenal, still is he's in his 60s, but he's phenomenal all-around martial artist, and we all still look up to him. And he's actually coming back to do a little small seminar for some of us in May, but and I'll tell you right now, I'm going to see Paulson, train with Paulson and Nelson. They're coming here to Jersey for 2 days. So I'm going to be over there training with them.
That's awesome.
Listen, I have no ego. Listen, again, I'm 42 and I will go to any seminar that I feel someone I can learn from, I feel like every martial art has something to offer. And I know that's a lot of flack. I might get some flack for saying that. And I'm just being humbly honest. there's if it's like, for example, if you go to like, I don't know, what does Steven Seagal do? Aikido. If you go to Aikido seminar, I guarantee you there's at least one thing you're gonna be like, you know what, that makes sense. And I showed it to you a couple years ago where we're showing you trapping with the gi, right? So Wayne used to always say, stop doing that kung fu shit. Like, well, it works.
No, you can grip fight with the kung fu. Is you can apply that to trapping in especially when you're trying to pass the closed guard, stand up in the closed guard, break the grips from the gi in the closed guard for sure. Master Lloyd Irvin was one of my mentors, and he is like an old school also martial arts guy, and he has actually saved his life one time knowing all these weird like gun takeaway shit. We used to always make fun of him about it, but it's 100% real, life saving. So look, I don't practice the traditional martial arts or anything like that, but I got love for them for sure, 100%. And anybody training anything is good. I don't care.
Absolutely,
training is for everybody. Competing maybe not, but training 100% for everybody.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Like, I'm just if someone was to tell me come up to me and say, yeah, I'm doing Aikido, well, God bless you. That's awesome. Do you love it?
I don't care. Do something.
Yeah, you're doing something. You're doing something. Yeah, it's just like being physical. Hey, I like to swim. All right, well, you're staying in shape.
Yeah, just do something.
I like to do this. You're walking. Yeah, you're doing something. It's God bless you, and I hope you enjoy it and you continue to enjoy the journey. Like, listen, I already have a plan. So, like, I don't know if I told you, Joe, I was doing private lessons in judo. I always said, well, if I'm going to learn how to really throw someone, I want to find the best. And I found the guy in Princeton, and I was doing private lessons with him twice a week. Now, my next goal is I've always wanted to do Shotokan karate or Kyokushin, like one of them. Like, I want to try one of those arts, and I want to go through the whole system. I want to learn everything.
The Mid-Atlantic is very strong martial arts roots. We're good at wrestling. We're good at boxing. They got all from New York to New Jersey. They were all in the karate, all the karate stuff back in the day. Always has been a staple in like the Mid-Atlantic area, And I've always said, like in MMA, if you come from the Mid-Atlantic, like you're fighting dogs from the get-go. When you fight all these other places, they'll build you up, and you get to fight these tomato cans. If you could sell some tickets, and then you can get confidence and get your record up. But bro, if you come out of the Mid-Atlantic on top, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So if you're a Mid-Atlantic fighter, keep going, because you're in the toughest, roughest spot there is.
Yeah, dude.
What and you guys talking about how tough it is out here. The reason why I train is not only for physical health, but also mental health, right?
Oh yeah.
Like jujitsu, getting on those mats for 2 hours a night, and even on Saturday mornings when we used to train kickboxing, I came with problems and I left with joy. You know what I mean? So how do you feel about that aspect?
No, you're 100% right. It's a huge portion of my mental health. Like, I can go to the gym and lift weights, but it's a different vibe, a different feeling. Like, I feel okay after I'm lifting weights, but last night I was there for almost 3 hours, just straight boxing, new conditioning, and it was like you could see like the aura, like in The Last Dragon, like the glow around me. I was like, oh, I feel so good. This is where I belong, man. It really does affect me mentally, physically. Like, I get kind of cranky if I don't go to the gym. You know what I mean? But thank God I've made so many friends over the past so many years. I have a friend in my town who has his own gym. I have two of my other friends that I have. There's like 5 gyms in New Jersey I can go to. Make a call and say, hey, can I come by and train? Yeah, come by and train. Yeah. It goes back to the camaraderie. Like, it's the environment, it's the people, and it really does help me feel less stressed. Whatever problems you have, it's gone. It's like I forget it. Versus when I go to the gym, I'm lifting weights and I'm thinking about an issue. I'm like, this is bullshit. But when I'm training, I don't have time to think about that shit. I'm trying to make sure I get face in the gear. I mean, like, so. It really does. I'm happy now. Look at me, I'm just thinking about it. It's just, it really does effectively help me with my mental and physical health.
Yeah, and
it's definitely therapy.
Yeah, therapeutic, absolutely. Yeah.
No, you come home, like I mean, I've had some, you have a horrible day at work, right? And you go train, and like my wife will even say, go train. You need a release, just go. And she'll see how stressed out I am, and I'm like, shoulder shrugs up here, and I go train for 2 hours. I come home, and it's like the shoulders are down around my ankles, and just the stupid smirk on my face. She's like, "Oh, class was good, huh?" Yeah, it felt great. It felt great. You know, like, and there's so Will, in terms of your training, right, for the mental health aspect, the spiritual aspect, the physical aspect, how often do you find that you need to be in a gym doing some type of training, like for a week, in a week's time?
I gotta do something at least 4 or 5 days a week.
Wow.
But,
Okay,
yeah,
that's heavy.
I have
Okay.
I have to. It really is a part. Whether it's strength and conditioning or martial arts training, it's got to. I need that in my life. You know, if I take a couple of days off, I'm getting older. I know how my body is. I can justify. Okay, let me focus on mobility training today, or flexibility training, or you know, I'll go for a walk. You know what I mean? Just to get my body moving, get the blood flowing. But I gotta train at least 4 or 5 days a week. I have to.
Wow. Okay, that's
I'll lose my
intense.
mind. Yeah, I lose my mind.
That's
And
intense.
Professor Chris said, like, come on, man. I'm feeding over here. He goes, all right, soon, next month. I'm like, all right. Like, you know, like.
So, John, just to give you a little background on Chris was one of our black belts, and Chris was one of my favorite instructors, right? And he's the one that I would constantly, like, so I came up under SAS team, and Adamir Oliveira, who is part of SAS team, and then he kind of went off on his own. So that's kind of like my lineage. And it's that old Brazilian mentality where, you know, you're a white belt, you're a blue belt, you're not doing heel hooks, you're not doing leg attacks until you get to brown. And I would go to Chris, you know, show me something, show me some leg locks, please. Show me how to get into the positions. That was Chris. Chris kind of went against the grain on everything and gave you that real life, you know, like, he's like, everything I'm showing you, if you got into a fight in the street, you do not use any of this stuff. This is for here, you know. And then Chris kind of went into where he got heavily into the kickboxing and the boxing part of it, which was like, you know, inspirational for me, because it's like, you know, once Will was stabbing me, stab, I was just like, wow, you know, like, if you get into an altercation, it's like, when am I going to pull guard and go for an arm bar when he stabbed me 30 times? Like, I have to learn something else. I have to do something else.
But just
Because
to defend jiu-jitsu really fast though, like, like, is it really, like, I mean, do you, Joe, as a guy who doesn't work, you know, where you're going to be around maybe a lot of situations that you're in the line of fire like you are, Will, where you actually you need to know how to be comfortable grabbing somebody's wrist who's got something sharp in there. You need that, right? So you need to be sharpening that shit up every day. But Joe, for you, like, why not just focus and go full in on
Oh, I
jiu-jitsu
do.
and be okay with that, and be like, I'm learning spider guard, and I don't care the guy can stab me, because, like, I'm gonna carry pepper spray and a concealed.
Oh, I got a knife in me
whatever,
on all time, at all times.
whatever, you know, like, if like the second I get, like, I stopped training for self-defense purposes long ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll run away if I've got to. If I feel like I can throw some punches and then run, I'll do that. If there's like a chair, I'll hit you in the head with that. I mean, you know, but ultimately,
you gotta win, man. You gotta win.
Yeah, like, but ultimately, like, every time I'm training, I'm going in there like I'm doing a sport. I look at myself like an athlete, not like a guy who's like,
yes,
like, you know. But when I do walk amongst the streets, amongst the plebs, you know, and the normies, I'm like, haha, I can kill all of you, you know. Even though I couldn't if they had a knife on me or whatever. If they had a knife on them, for sure, I can't do that. You know, I'll track and field is going to be my defense. But one-on-one, hand-on-hand combat, let's walk into, send me anybody you want. Just don't send me anybody you want back, okay? So, but that's just crazy meathead fighter mentality with that part. So, like, you know, it's just that it's like, man, I love how you work in the shit, Will. So you actually need it, but like so many like old school martial arts guys, they don't want to transition into jiu-jitsu. They just don't. They're like, I hate this. This is
I love it. No, but that's the thing. It was more of the fact that I know, you know, and I know that, like,
it's
say,
like you got to suspend disbelief almost. It's like, I know you're upside down right now.
No, it's
more triangle.
No, it's more of the imposter syndrome. That's why I asked Will about, like, the mental health, right? Like, I think, you know, I talk about this in classes all the time with like, you know, my training partners. It's like, you look around and it's like we're literally trying to dismember each other, like take our heads off, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how many people in the world really, like, I get a kick out of it. Like, if I get punched, if I get tagged in the face, or if I get caught in a deep arm bar, I'm not like, I don't get pissed off. It's like, well done, man. Awesome. Like,
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
now I've got to figure out how to not get myself in that position again. Right. But my thing was that, okay, I'm training at like a high level because the school that I go to, like we're pumping out a bunch of beasts that are half my age, like they're in their early 20s. I'm in my late 40s, so of course there's that, I'm starting to degrade. I'm not as fast as I am. Maybe I'm not as strong as I used to be. Right. So then I was looking at it more of like the fact that it's like, hey, I'm confident in my jujitsu abilities, right? Now it's like I want to add another arrow to my quiver. You know what I mean? So when I saw them training like the Muay Thai, it's like, hey, I came up doing, Taekwondo. So I could do all those spinning jump kicks and side kicks, and I have pretty decent power for not using it in the last 20 years, right? But it's like, hey, I want to get in. I want to get in. Like my hands aren't fast. My hands suck. And I remember the first couple of times I felt like a spaz. I had like a decent base, but like Will brought a couple of his buddies down that were like animals. You know what I mean? Like these are guys I would not want to stand in front of and have to throw fists with them. Like we were just hitting pads and they were killing my shoulder.
Yeah, but it goes back to what I said earlier, right?
Striking,
Like, you're training in an art, which is amazing. Listen, man, do something.
Right.
Again, you limit your ability, no matter what art you do, right? If you're just a Muay Thai guy and you don't do any grappling, that's a problem. If you're a grappler, this is my opinion, and if you don't know how to do striking or something, it might be a problem. If you don't know how to understand the distance and range, the management of how to utilize that, that's a problem. So again, I love all martial arts, and I think everyone's doing great by doing something, but again, whether you call it MMA or the combination or whatever, it's just I feel like if you learn how to put it together and make it your own, you have a higher success rate. Whether we'll say for the street of surviving, or even for the sport, right? But then there's also the fact that we talked about this before. Remember, there's the sport, and then there's the street. There's gi, and then there's no gi. There's MMA, and then there's this, right? So I was helping a couple years ago. I was helping my buddy train one of his fighters, and we talked to him. Listen, stop wearing a gi. Just hear us out. If you want, I'm not telling you what to do, but just for now, stop wearing the gi because it puts you in a position where you're used to doing something else. So he tries to go for my wrist, which he was used to grabbing a gi, and he grabs it and does this, and there was nothing there. So I scooped and went pop. I said, please stop wearing the gi. Now you're so used to grabbing and doing this. It was showing how it was affecting him, and he listened and it helped. But it might not be the same for someone else, right? So maybe he was nervous.
My guys have to come up in the gi before they transition to anything else. You can always tell when a person is a no gi only guy because they're pressure. They don't have pressure. They can't like stifle you, and they can't like really like control the top position like a guy who can't. You're forced in the position for so long that you have to get like used to the different angles that you get. Again, this is all for sport specifically.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but unless they're a wrestler,
like counterintuitive almost. What's that?
But unless they're a wrestler, like, and that's where I would get
even a wrestler has had. I think a wrestler, pure wrestlers only have a hard time dealing with a guy that's allowed to wrestle on his side, because in jiu-jitsu and in MMA, when the fight gets to your back, wrestlers are good at pinning, but like they're not good at a guy who once they pin the guy and the guy's like able to wiggle onto his side, then they're like, whoa, this guy's like worming out of his. I don't know all the overhook transitions to keep this guy on his back. They can't. I see it happen all the time. They have to learn. You can wrestle on your side like you can't wrestle in. And for the people that are just listening, I'm like laying on my side, not flat on my back. In wrestling, you're never gonna wrestle flat on your side because it's too close to being flat on your back, which the match would be completely over. So they're very much more like isometrically strong, isolated, and head to head, more than like a jiu-jitsu gi guy.
Angles.
Gi guys can be very flowy, very open, So I don't know. That's my weird just like philosophy on the gi and no gi debate. But I'm glad that it was brought up.
But what Will was saying, like there is truth to it, because like I like to think I've got vice grips, you know, especially in gi. Like once I grab your gi, I'm not letting go, and you're gonna have a hard time getting my
They're the
hands
same
off.
grips to me, though. They're the same, like this or this. It would be the same thing.
I agree, depending on how sweaty you are, and if you have like a rash guard on, and I've got some friction that I can get against it to keep you held down. But if we're going skin to skin and you're soaking wet, I have problems keeping a grip on somebody. I just you know, looked at this as an opportunity, you know, as I said earlier, to put more arrows in my quiver. You know, it's just like if I want to, you know, you go get a gun, right? Are you just going to get a gun and keep it in that safe, and then, you know, hopefully you're going to figure out how to shoot it if you ever have to use it? No, you're going to go to the range and practice, right? It's the same mentality, you know. Well, I've been staring at Goonies and it looks like
Aliens.
an alien,
Yeah.
yeah, Aliens poster behind you. So like martial arts, right? They're a huge part of like action films, comic books, video games. What part of that drew you into the nerd culture? And I might be being a little bit aggressive calling you a nerd, but I'm a nerd
No,
also.
call me a nerd, dude. No, this is how we clicked, right? Martial arts
and Star Wars.
Yeah. So for as long as I can remember, you know, Christopher Reeve, Superman, and that was it. I didn't even remember doing this. My mom used to say, you used to walk around with a towel around your neck, like I'm sure like all of us back in the day.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That's how it started. I was
Tidy
like,
whities with the towel around the
that's it, dude. Right. So I was, you know, once a month I still watch it. It's one of the greatest movies ever, right? And I'm just a movie nerd, movie fan. Everyone who knows me knows like I'm a nerd. Like in my garage, I have all my figures and statues I collected over the years. But how it translates into martial arts, it doesn't. It just like there was just something that I just loved doing. And
he's frozen for you, Joe. Okay. Before my screen was cutting black, and you guys were like, "No, everything's fine." I'm like,
"No, we saw you fine." Yeah, Will's frozen.
I couldn't see.
Will might have lost internet.
I was completely.
It's all good. I could edit this out. I'll figure out it's at 34 minutes or whatever. I'll just edit it out. Not a big deal. We'll just wait for him to come back in.
I was gonna say it actually is tied together. He's more comfortable with being a nerd just because he gets out all that alpha male energy.
Dude, I got Darth Vader tattooed on my arm.
Yeah, we're like, we don't care. I wear pink all the time. I don't care. I'm like, yeah.
I literally have Darth Vader tattooed on my arm. I'm not all right. So we lost. We have to wait for him to come back. No big deal. We'll wait. Yeah, dude. When I roll, I mean, we could keep this going and not whatever. Things happen, right? Internet sucks. When I roll, like it's funny because we have this kid there. I'm not going to say his name, but he's a white belt who I've taken a liking to because you could see that this kid's extremely smart, and I love helping him out. Like I love training him. I love working with him, teaching him techniques and stuff. And he's always commenting on my shirt because I've always got like some Star Wars shirt or some geek shirt or some comic book shirt, like, you know, Superman shirt or a Flash shirt, even though I'm slow as crap. And we always have, and then he has his nerd shirts, and we always compare, and like we show her shirt, you know, they take the gi off and like, all right, what do you got today? You know, like the nerd. That's what I love about the martial arts too, is like, you know, you see these guys who like they look like nerds that would score higher than you on a calculus test, and it's just like they will beat your butt. You know, they can beat your butt on the mat.
Yep. Literally, MMA is a representation of all walks of life. There's guys that look like accountants that would beat you up. There are guys that look like they're at Comic-Cons that'll beat you up, and then there's guys that look like they are from jail that will beat you up. Funny enough, Sebastian Ramirez, head MMA coach at Crazy 88, the guy who coaches with me, a very, very good coach. He's got Boba Fett tattooed on him. He's a big time Star Wars guy.
Oh, it's dude.
Quite a few other related tattoos.
Yeah, no, I
Is Will texting you?
I just texted him. He probably lost his internet. That's one of the things that drove me crazy about this initially, because where I am in my house, I'm on the other side of my house, and I don't have one of those pods. No, I have a router, but like it's one of the, I forgot what they call it. Like sorry, my computer went, I lost connection. Yeah, no worries. All right, yeah, he'll be back in. So I don't have one of those. I forgot what they call it. And I'm in the other side of my house, and the internet
It
doesn't work.
extends the router. Is that what you're talking about? One of those things?
Yeah,
That's what I meant. Yeah.
I've got a cheap extender I bought on Amazon, like in the hallway, that when I'm home alone, or if like it's just me and my wife, it's fine. The second the kids get home, it eats the crap out of like, you know, the bandwidth.
Yeah.
So I can't use it. So I tether to my phone. So like right now I'm on my cell phone is tethered to my computer. Right, because I can't stand like this is one of the issues that I had like initially when I was doing like the podcast. It's like, well, internet's bad, and like the first couple we did, it was people freezing, or I was frozen on a thing, and then you're trying to do this podcast, and you're trying to be as like, you know, professional as you can,
while
and
you're
it's
trying
like,
to be your own producer. Yeah,
right. So it's like I'm producing everybody, and it's just like, guys, like I'm texting everybody, keep going, act like I'm here, you know, like act like just pretend, because it's gonna save me from the editing I have to do later. Like this stuff, I'm just gonna say like, here he goes, here he's back. Hang on.
Sorry,
and we're back.
Sorry.
And we're back. Oh no, dude, listen. You know what? I was just telling John that like when I first started doing this, like the first rendition of this podcast with a bunch of like serious golf buddies, and it's just like, I love golf, but I don't want to talk about golf every time. I want to mix it up, you know. And when we used to do this, I used to be frozen, so like I'd be on the screen like this, you know, like just maybe moving and stuck. And I would be like, guys, just keep going. I'll unfreeze myself. I'll edit it out later. Just keep going. But anyway,
yeah.
we
So
were
the
talking
nerd stuff. Sorry, the nerd stuff. Yeah.
nerd stuff.
Nerd stuff. Yeah. So you know, I still read, you know, comics. I still watch. I look forward to the next superhero movie. I still go to Comic Cons and meeting the people that I grew up idolizing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's just really cool, especially now these days. They're like right around the corner. I can go to Philly, I can go to Cherry Hill and meet the actors I love from all these films I grew up on. And yeah, man, I'm still a nerd, and I still love going. I don't do cosplay, but so like I love going and seeing like how people have such great imaginations. Like I remember like 10 years ago, this guy made. You ever see the second Avengers, Age of Ultron? There was the Hulkbuster. The guy made like a life-size Hulkbuster.
I've seen that guy.
And it was in it, and it was moving around like it was all like you would have thought it was a real Iron Man suit. It was, so it's cool like that. But to meet the actors of the shows and movies I grew up watching, I love it, man. It's fun.
That guy did a R2D2 Hulkbuster. You ever see that one? The white and blue one?
Yeah.
Dude, that guy is insane. And then speaking of franchises, what are some of your favorite franchises in like the comic
tough,
book world?
Man. Like again, I love the first Superman, you know, in regards to that. Man, just movies in general. Like I can go all day. That's a whole 3 other hours. But listen, we all grew up in the 80s, right? Dude, I watched Predator once. I love Predator. Alien.
Oh God,
yes. Anything Van Damme, from like Bloodsport until like Time Cop, Universal Soldier, like that whole decade, you know.
Not Lionheart though.
Right, Stallone and Schwarzenegger. I love all these movies that they don't make them like that anymore. Like I love seeing big explosions and the guy walking away in slow motion. Like, you know, like it's fun. It's still fun to me, dude. And it brings me back to like the days of me hanging with my family. We used to go to movies all the time, and my dad would take me to, it was called the Epic Theater in PA. You know, when he took me to see Back to the Future 3 and the first Batman, Michael Keaton. And that's why I love movies. It's just kind of like nostalgic, you know. And plus, it's like 2-3 hours of like I don't have to worry about nothing. I can just escape reality and enjoy, you know, the new content or the old content that's going out right now, you know?
And be somebody else.
The Future still holds up, man.
Hold on.
That's so good.
Wait, we got it. So we got it.
Robert Zemeckis is a beast.
Yeah. So yeah, I met them. I met Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd 2 years ago. So it was pretty awesome, you know?
Wow, that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, it's like I said, it's just
Michael
like
J. Fox.
Well, here's a question for you, Will. And I don't think I've ever asked you this. What did you think of the Zack Snyder franchise?
I thought the Man of Steel was amazing. I really thought it was really good. BVS, it was, you know, it had its moments. I'll say
Yeah.
it was cool to finally see. It was just as a nerd, it was cool to see all of them on screen.
Your mom's name's Martha too?
Yeah, dude. But the warehouse scene, the fight scene, I was like, now that's a Batman fight scene. That's
Yes.
that's
Yes.
what
Is this
stole
the
the
one
show
with
for
Robert
me.
Patterson?
That is the
Twilight
Batman.
guy?
Yeah, this one was with
So
Ben Affleck.
speaking of that Batman scene, right? I forgot his name, and but we're friends on Facebook.
Are we talking about BVS?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The guy who did all the stunt work for Ben Affleck in that scene, I'm gonna have on the podcast.
Really?
Yes, yes,
I'm getting a
yes.
brain for it. I think
I can't remember.
Yeah,
he was in that zombie movie that
he was the zombie, the leader of the
yes, super cool dude. We're friends on Facebook, and I asked him like, hey, I do a martial arts / golf podcast. I'm also a huge nerd that absolutely positively love Justice League. The Snyder cut, I'm talking about
the Snyder cut. Yeah, that was amazing.
The Snyder cut, because one of the things that I loved about it, right? I sat there during the pandemic when they released it for 4.5 hours and watched that movie.
Yeah,
what they did, how do you cut out all that cyborg stuff that made the movie?
The whole movie was great. It was 10 times better than the one they released in the theater. Again, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
This is my opinion.
Yes, agreed.
But again, who did the fight scene for the Batman warehouse scene? Damon Carroll, who is under Guru Dan Inosanto. So again, he trained with all those Eric Paulson back in the day. He was part of that whole crew. So if you look it up, Damon Carroll was, him, Eric Paulson, Chaz Stahelski, David Leitch. These are all like Hollywood guys now. Like they are like running Hollywood. And they all had that Jeet Kune Do background and Muay Thai and the Filipino arts and the Indonesian martial arts and everything, that I'm doing, they were doing, and he put that scene together. So it's like, and that's why I always say, man, learn as much as you can, because you never know when those skill sets are going to be needed. So it's like, we were looking for a guy for a film, and I was like, what's your background? Oh, I only do this. I'm like, I'm sorry, they need a kicker. So I need someone who can really, has that kicking background on top of this. And that's just the way it is. Like, they're going to always go with someone who has multiple skill sets, on top of unless you're specifically looking for one for a specific scene. I get it. But, that's why it's good to have that whole background. So you can say, oh, well, we can do this, and we can incorporate that. Oh, okay. Well, let's see how it looks together,
If your goal is to be like on the movie sets as a martial arts person, I 100% advocate learning all of those the disciplines that involve you were talking about like stick fighting and or those just having with weapons and stuff, a lot of martial artists these days don't go towards that, but you and it's kind of counterintuitive because a lot of guys that are fighters have the look to kind of transition onto it could be an extra in a movie or something like that. So learning, just exposing themselves to being able to do that, they could put that on, add that to their resume and make themselves more marketable. After competition martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely. It expands your knowledge, right? And it boosts the resume, and they can say, hey, listen, I'm certified, or I've trained in these arts. But one of my coaches, he passed away recently, like a year ago, but we were talking, this was like 15 years ago. He said, if it wasn't for the Filipino arts, my win percentage of kickboxing would have gone up, because you're working both sides of the body. I'm not just focused on my left lead, you're focusing on the right lead. You have two sticks in your hand. You have this. So you're learning how to transition and work both sides of the body to help you become better. Why? Because you're able to read the person better. You're able to react, right? You're working on hand speed, the neural pathways of how it works. Like, if you're right-handed, the left side works. If you're left-handed, the right side of the brain works. Now you're working in conjunction and making it work even harder to process certain things when you're reading a body language, or when you're reading, or when you're able to apply the technique. And then when he said that, like, all right, I'm gonna do it too, because that was the hardest thing for me. That was the hardest thing for me. Filipino martial arts, the weapons. I actually told myself, I spoke to myself, I must have quit like 4 times. That's for me, that's how hard it was, right? Because I wasn't used to it like that much. So I met a friend of mine out of New York, and he goes, well, just do it just do the technique without the sticks, it's called panatukan, which is it's called dirty boxing. Like, it's called limb destruction. So I would do the same technique without the edge weapon. Then I got used to that. I added the edge weapon, or like a baton, or whatever, like a small stick. Then I used the single stick, and then I added the double stick, so it made me a little bit better to understanding. And it took me that long, but I took my time with the process because the way my brain is, the way I absorb the information, you know, the way I train, you know.
Yeah, but I loved when we started, because I'm still a spaz with the Filipino fighting sticks. But when you started showing us the trapping and how you're using that butt edge, the butt end, the lower side of the edge, the buño, yeah, to trap and to redirect. I started working with my daughters with it, like just like, you know, getting into the habit, doing the X's. In my opinion, I think it's one of the best things to learn, because like on a comic book, to kind of tie this back to comic book, my daughter's a huge like Batman freak, you know, so she's like, that's like Nightwing. Nightwing has the baton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever's going to get you to train these things, if you want to pretend you're Nightwing, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of film, which was a great segue earlier, you recently did fight and stunt choreography for the film Swipe, which is directed by Sean Whalen, right?
Yep.
And Sean Whalen was in one of my top 3 favorite movies, because a lot of people don't know this, you know, who maybe follow me now. Like, I was a musician, and one of my favorite movies of all time is That Thing You Do. And Sean Whalen is like the super fan, like when they play like their local battle of the bands, and he's like, can I buy a record of the Oneaters? And I was just like, so what was it like? What was that experience like? Just, you know, like, this is your first major motion picture, right?
Yeah, it was a very surreal experience, because when I got the job, I got all the information of who I'm going to be working with. And I look at the name, like, man, I know that name. Why do I know that name? So, you know, go to IMDb. I'm like, holy crap. You know, I grew up, I'm not just a comic book fan, an action film from the 80s, but I love horror. Right. Yes. And there was this movie I grew up watching called The People Under the Stairs. And he was one of the main guys in that movie. They cut his tongue off. He was full, whatever. And I was like, holy shit, I know him, you know. And then, you know, when we got to get to know each other on Zoom, because he's over in the West Coast, and got to know each other more. And working with him was really a phenomenal experience. And you know me, for a while, I don't blow smoke. So it really was a collaborative effort. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, he would call me, or he would text me, or he would bring me on when I'm on set. He was, hey, check the camera out. What do you think for like a certain fight scene? I would say, yeah, you know, I was kind of just stay in my lane. He goes, no, I need you to work with me, because you know what you're seeing. I don't see what you see. Why would I have him do it again? Because, you know, they're not really fully extending, or the camera needs to be based at a 45-degree angle so you can sell the illusion of contact, right? That's really what it is in you know, any fight game. You can't just punch a person in the face, right?
Yeah.
But working with him was really cool. Working with the writer and producer and all the actors and actresses on set, everyone was very nice, very humble, always willing to work. My only thing was training. Like anything else, you have to be prepared, right? So when I reached out to him the week before, I said, hey, listen, I know you're flying in soon. Let me know when the actors and actresses are available, because I don't want to go at the last minute on the day of, and then we're going to spend like 20 hours there, right? Because you're on a time schedule. You have to have it. You can only work so many hours. You can only stay there for so long and do whatever you have to do. So I would say, hey, listen, I'm going to give up my time. I'll get with you guys, and my buddy's gym is literally 10 minutes from your house. Let's rehearse this specific scene, which we did. It was like a boxing scene in the beginning of the film. And then there was a couple more scenes. Hey, I'll meet you at my buddy's gym. We'll make up a mock-up of what the area is going to look like, so we can have a better understanding of how to apply, you know, whatever techniques you want for the film, you know. But the thing is with that is, I don't like to be intrusive, but I gotta know you a little bit more. Like, listen, I'm not trying to get into your business, but do you have any injuries? Any pre-existing injuries? Are you limited by your ability to move, right? Because I don't want to come up with a technique or a concept or a cool whatever for film, and you can't do it because you got a bad hip, or you just hurt your shoulder, or you just whatever to your neck, which happened to someone like before they got there, they had a little bad neck thing. And okay, well, we're not going to do that. We'll focus on this, because I want you to stay healthy, you know, for the remainder of the 4 weeks they were here, you know? So, and then coming up with that, and then you read the script, and then you talk to the actor. Hey, listen, I have an idea what it should probably look like, but let me get your thoughts too, because we have to work together, right? And then let's work together and figure out, here's what I have, and what do you think? I like it. Can we add this? Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't work, at least we can say we tried it and it's not right. let's come up with another concept or something else entirely different, you know?
Yeah. And then how did you like, all right, so you went in, you did some pre-training, right? So you're not walking in the first day, you know, basically teaching them moves that, hey, they're actors, right? They're not fighters. They're not
Not
training
fighters, not players.
on a weekly basis. What was your process for like when involving like safety, like general safety, because you're
Right.
taking
So
these.
right. So stunt coordinator, your job is safety. It's just number one is safety. So for example, they filmed a scene in my town, which is like a quarter mile down the street. Like, hey, we're going to be in Hamilton as well. Like, all right, well, I'll meet you there. And what's the first thing I do? I inspect the house, and I walk up to the steps, and there's something wrong with the steps. You got to mark it off. Hey, listen, be careful when you walk up these steps. Mark it off with some tape. Get with the guys, the key grips, or whatever the other guys are there. All like they have all the tools readily available, and let everyone know. Hey, go inside, inspect the house, inspect the props. You know what I mean? To make sure that everyone is safe, right?
Mhm.
That's pretty much the job of a stunt coordinator, is just everyone's safety involved, right? And then obviously being an armorer, again, inspecting the props, depending on what weapon they're probably going to be using for a scene. Nowadays, it's a lot of digital. Like if you look at John Wick, if you look at all 4 John Wick movies, that's not blanks. That's all digital. That's all digital from the muzzle.
All right, do not bash John Wick. Okay, it's one of my favorite.
I'm one of the
films.
biggest John Wick fans you're ever going to meet. Like,
But my
just like
ringtone is
I was
John
gonna
Wick.
say, don't bring up the Alec Baldwin situation.
well, it's just you know, it's just
No,
you
it's
have
true,
to
yeah.
stay on top of certain things, and you know, with
Absolutely.
respect and being humble, right? Like, listen, man, like you have to work together. Let's make sure, because listen, like whether you're an armorer or a stunt coordinator or a fight choreographer, your job, no matter what, is safety, right?
Yeah.
It's always safety to make sure, right?
Now, was there more scrutiny on the arm? I mean, you guys are aware of what happened on the set of Rust with
Yeah.
the Baldwin with the arm. I mean, that's high. I mean, I don't know if that was like the highest level production. I think it was a little bit. I mean, it had big time people on it.
It had some
Big
good
time
actors on there, yeah.
You know, big time. So it's like there's money in that movie. So you'd think that something like that wouldn't slip through. You know, so like it could happen at any level. I
Yeah,
guess is
any
where,
level. Listen, man.
you
I mean,
know,
I'm a big fan of The Crow, man. That's one of my top 5 favorite comic book films of all
yeah,
time.
man. Yes.
And you know, if you
Very
do
good
the
movie.
research, you know,
Wow.
at that time, I guess they couldn't afford to have a stunt coordinator on set, so they just say, "Hey, Joe Schmo, why don't you check the weapon?" Well, you did a terrible job inspecting the weapon, and look what happened.
That is
You know?
a mainstream narrative of how that happened, isn't it? Though,
Yeah, it's
isn't
pretty
there
much like in a nutshell what
some,
happened.
but it wasn't the mob involved in that, and
That's
they
all rumor. You know, I mean, I didn't find anything
his
showing
dad
that.
died
But,
under
you
unusual
know,
circumstances. He died under unusual circumstances, and
yeah, I
then
know. That's really
on and it's still just all right. Hey, okay, yep.
Yeah, but I mean, from what I understand and what I've read and with the research, is just listen. They couldn't afford to keep the stunt coordinator on set, or the armor, excuse me. And again, from what I understand and what I've listened to, what I've read books about this. I've listened to interviews, and they just were cheap that day. And they told, for example, Joe, go home. We can't. And then they just told John, hey, John, inspect his gun real quick for the scene. And they didn't do a proper job doing it. So, that's the job of an armorer / stunt coordinator / fight choreographer. It's just everyone's safety, no matter what. You know, because let's be real, like everything rolls downhill, right? So God forbid that was to happen. Well, who's the armorer? Who's the stunt coordinator? Who's
It's
gonna
all
get
on your shoulders.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, with respect, I tell everyone, hey, if there's any issues, don't hesitate to reach out. Here's my number. Whatever you need, just let me know. That's what I tell everyone on set. Whatever you need, let me know. That's what we're here for.
Did you take any like inspiration from like a particular movie? Being like, you know, we grew up watching those amazing action and fight movies, like, you know, any of the Van Damme movies, the Arnold movies, the John Wicks of today, like, you know, like you know what I mean? Like, and going back to as cheesy as like cutting the angles of like Rocky, for example, like they were probably throwing punches a foot away from each other, but the angle just cut it right where it looks like he's actually getting tagged.
And if you look at the angles, it's all 45-degree angles. It's over the shoulder. It's from making sure that person is angled at that position there where they can sell the fight. But that goes with training, right? So even look at the old Rocky footage when they were behind the scenes stuff, you see them training those 15 rounds in the ring. You got to get used to it, right? Just like
It's
fighting.
choreography.
But just like fighting, you got to prepare, you got to train, right? So
Mm-hmm.
with this film, it was an action film. It was a horror film that required a little bit of action. So what I did was, for example, one of the actresses, the character that they have is very elusive, very loose, right? Like kind of like a Harley Quinn-esque type of character. And I say, hey, here's an idea. What do you think? Oh, I like it. Okay, cool. Try it. I can't get the footwork down. Okay, how much time do we have? 5 minutes. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Right. And if you don't like it, we can modify it. Just like you're in training. Listen, side control. Oh, my hips hurt. Okay, put your right leg back and put your left knee up under the armpit. Still got side control, right? It's just modifying the techniques or the moves, and in regards to enhancing the strength of the character or the actor, right? I want to make you look good. So this is what goes back to what I said before. I don't want to be intrusive, but tell me what's going on so I can make sure that you're not going to get injured. 2, I want to make this the best scene possible for you. And again, if you have anything to add, let's do it. Right. That's I try to stay as positive and upbeat as possible and inclusive and collaborative as possible. Right.
So that means, like, rather than, picking a particular style or a particular movie, like I want to frame it like John Wick, or I want to frame it like this fight scene, like Rocky or whatever. You collaborated with these actors to basically come up with a style of your own. And that's amazing.
For the character. Right. Yeah. You have to work with the DP, which is the director of photography. Like, he's like the guy with the camera, and you guys work together and we say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? There was a, hey, what do you think? Like, I would say, we'll tell her to take a right step back, put her in a defensive stance, make the camera go this way. So now, it goes back to what we talked about. It gives the illusion of you're making contact. Right? Yeah. And listen, it happens, right? So it actually did happen. Someone got punched in the forehead. So, but again, that's because we look back on it, it's timing, rehearsal, right? Because again, it's like, the punch is coming, right? But now when I sell it here, you can see it. But when I go here, right, or if I go here, it looks like there's contact, and now I gotta roll with it or go with it to sell the scene, right? So again, it goes back to just train, man. You gotta come out and train.
So what was one of the coolest or most rewarding moments on set? Because correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time you've ever been on a set, correct?
No, it's the third time.
Third time. Okay.
So I start right. So third time. In regards to this set, like, everyone was really, really nice and very, very open and collaborative and very they wanted everyone to be involved. Like, it really was like, I understand. Listen, the director, the script supervisor, and the producer, like, they're the bosses. But it really was like, the director would call me and say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, hey, that sounds good. I mean, I would try this instead. You would do this? Like, yeah, I would do that instead. Okay, sure. So there's a couple of scenes where there is a law enforcement officer involved. Hey, would you do this? No, I wouldn't do that. Why? Well, if you stand at the door and the door opens and the bad guy's behind that door with a gun, who's getting shot first? I wouldn't do that, right? I would do this instead, and I would take this position and yada yada, right? So and that was another reason why, or how I got into this industry, we'll say, because of my background, not just in martial arts, but in law enforcement. And, we were talked before filming would start. Hey, would you do this? No, I wouldn't do that. Why? Well, here's why, X, Y, and Z. That, and that goes back to day one. We were shooting the boxing scene / like MMA scene. And I was like, I did ask a question respectfully, and they would say, would you do that? No. I was like, you're going to lose credibility from the people who actually train, and they're going to call you out, and you're going to lose those people, if that makes sense, right? They're going to say, like, I'm going to say, that's bullshit. I wouldn't do that, right? Yeah. That's like any cop watching a cop show or a corrections officer looking at a corrections show and saying that's never going to happen. That's BS.
That's not going to happen.
And I get it. You got to. It's a movie. It's fantasy. You got to really enhance it. But they really wanted to know the answers. Even the actor, like, you're like, would you do this? I wouldn't do that. I would do this. Here, take this flashlight. This is my old flashlight. Take this. This looks like being used now.
It's hard for them to make like fighting competition movies. It's like really hard to do.
I think the closest Kingdom. Have you seen Kingdom?
I've seen Kingdom.
It's
a show though, right?
Yeah, the TV show with Frank Grillo, like that. I want to say that show is probably the closest, maybe, in regards to like an MMA type of show. Other than that, I can't really think of any.
You guys remember the Warrior, right?
Yeah,
that's the one. Yes,
Warrior.
Yes,
yeah.
Warrior was probably the hands down the best MMA movie of all time. What are you laughing at?
I don't know if it's the best, but I would.
And listen, from somebody who's never stepped in a cage, Okay, I've never lived that life, right? I've only been on the cusp. That's it, just right on the edge. And then when I get hit in the face a little bit too hard, I step back. That's it. It's very simple.
Listen, I'd rather have a mindset like you and be able to enjoy those things. It's like it's a gift and a curse. You get to learn all this stuff, and then I hate everything that's related to it. I'm like, no,
No, I know. I know.
hate that. So
I love it all,
it's
dude.
like
I love
a
it all, man.
cynical type of vibe whenever I watch a martial arts thing. But Will, do you see yourself continuing this path, on like working on sets and maybe trying to like run with this, or or just kind of taking it one opportunity at a time as it comes, and maybe networking while you can, because you're juggling all your other stuff. So I mean,
Yeah, no,
how
that's
do
a
you
great
see
question.
it kind of materializing?
No, yeah, I think it's a combination of all the questions involved. Like, yes, I do see myself. I have 2 more projects coming up that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
One's a short film, one's another feature film at the end of the summer. I still love teaching. I still love training. As long as there's someone like me or you or all of us out there that have the background, like, to let these people know, like in this world, like, listen, this is how it should be done to a certain extent. Obviously, it's film, and I think we were talking about Roadhouse. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I was hoping you weren't going to bring that up.
I'm bringing it up. I don't care.
That's the one
Like,
I
I
like.
love the
Yeah.
old school Roadhouse.
I never saw it.
No,
I did give the new one a chance.
Wow.
It had its moments, but I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't too happy with the fight scenes.
See, I love the fight scene.
It was so corny. I loved it. I was like,
Well,
it was like not trying to be
I had a
serious.
friend.
I'm like, totally cool.
It was like, it was weird. It was like CGI punching. So I was
I
like,
know. Look, man. Then Conor
that's
McGregor's
CGI?
running around half naked. It's like it's craziness. But
no, he stole the show. I was dying laughing.
PXG driver was in there. I was like, man, I got everything in here. This is great.
Yeah. So I was a little upset because, like, come on, you can't remake a classic. But I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance. You know what I mean? So, but it was like things like, but going back to what we talked about, like, yeah, answer your question. I love film. The people that had introduced me into this world, it goes back to training. So like I said before, I met so many people in training over the years. A buddy of mine, we trained together for a while, and he works in film. He directs and he writes and produces, and he works in film. And he was like, hey man, you should, we talked about doing it. I'm like, yeah, I'm a nerd. I would love to do it. And he was like, okay, and about a couple of years ago, he says, hey, come down. We're doing a movie and we need extras. Can you come down, bring some friends? Yeah, sure. Little did I know, he was introducing me to the director and showing me around. He was like, hey, this is Will. I was like, okay. So they showed me a couple years ago. It was like, here's the makeup room. Here's how we do makeup. Here's how we do the props. Here's how we apply a squib, which is the fake blood coming out. Here's the scene right here. Here's how we set up cameras. And then I kept learning more and more, and then coming out more and more and learning and just being a sponge. Like, martial arts is absorbing as much as I can. So every time I go on set, I pick, like, every day I'd pick a team of people to watch. So, like, I didn't want to be a creep, but the last film I just worked on, the makeup team, hey, can I sit with you guys and learn and watch it? Yeah, Will, come on by. And they were showing me how they have what tools they use and why they use this color or why they do that, right? And the next day I was hanging around the camera people, hey, why do you do it like that? Because it's like martial arts. Everyone has a different technique. Everyone has a different way of applying something different, right? For whatever specific reason. And I'm just absorbing as much as I can,
and making it your own.
Right.
Making it your own, yeah.
Just going again, and that builds more experience, right? Just learning from as much people as I can, right? Just to get better,
And that kind of seals what I was saying earlier, with that's what kind of what seals like what I said earlier. It's not that, like, John, it's not like I'm turning my back on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's still my baby.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
But it's just putting the like, if learning Filipino fighting sticks, trapping, boxing, being a better boxer, learning how to use my lower body to hit across versus, an arm punch that Will used to yell at me all the time about, like, you're getting too handsy, and it's the same thing. And you can apply that. Same thing with golf. It's the same thing with golf. Like, when you get too handsy, there's no power. You lose speed and this and that. It's the same thing.
It's literally the same thing.
Same thing. But Will, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and talk. Yes, you got to come up to Jersey. But thank you for taking the time to talk about your experience with martial arts, the nerd culture, your experience on the film Swipe. When's the film coming out? I know they're probably in post-production.
Yeah, right now they're doing the editing. I have no idea. Actually, Sean just reached out the other day and just shot me a text that he was happy. They were all very excited with the fight scenes and how it came out. And I didn't get a chance to say, hey, when's it coming out? I just said thank you, and it really was an honor to work with you, like someone who I grew up watching, and it was an amazing time to work with the actors and everyone involved. So looking forward to seeing that. As soon as I find out, I'll let you know, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, when I'm guessing it's either going to come out probably late 2025, early 2026, right? And I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it all comes about, and obviously I know I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to ruin anything. But the story is a pretty cool story. Something when I read it, I was like, man, this is pretty fucked up, but it's pretty cool at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? So
Nice.
I was like, this is gonna be cool. So, but yeah, like working with everyone, it was a great time, a great experience, and thanks for having me. It's pleasure being on here, and John, looking forward to meeting you in the future. Hopefully, we can all train together one day.
See you on the mats, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not looking like I was watching John roll, and I'm not looking forward to rolling with him when I head down to Maryland.
Smiling.
Anyway, hey everybody, thanks for listening, and Will, again, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you. We out.
Peace.
Thanks for having me.